Thanks, Allison, for introducing me. Like she said, I'm the program coordinator for the Center for Equity and Inclusive Excellence. We are located in the Powell Building on the third floor. And like she said, I started in August this last year. So I'm still fairly new to Elon. And the topic of the series is personal stories of change. And over the past 6 to 7 years, I have done intense reflection on why and how I changed as a person. I studied psychology in undergrad, and I eventually do want to become like a therapist. And I've gone to therapy since age 11, so I know how important it is to look at your environment and my past experiences to understand why you are who you are. So some of y'all know that I grew up around here, but for the people that don't know, I grew up in Gibsonville. I went to Burlington Day School, or now it's the Elon School, for middle school, and then I went to a Christian high school around here. I went to East Carolina University for undergrad, and like I said, I studied psychology. And I got a minor in human development and family services. So bringing in what I learned from my developmental psychology classes and my HDFS classes, there's a psychologist named Erik Erikson, and he's very known for his stages of psychosocial development. This is something that I began thinking a lot about personally because I was adopted by white parents from China, especially throughout college and after college. I began to think about how being raised by white parents in a predominantly white culture, how that impacted the way I see life and myself. And in the identity versus role confusion stage, Erikson explains that adolescents explore their independence and develop a sense of self, like who am I, how do I fit into society, and social relationships become very important. So when I was in middle school, I had other people in my class that were adopted. They spoke different languages, and they had different religions. But I didn't realize how important it is to be aware of your cultural identity until I went to a high school that had so little diversity. So I heard like many phrases like, you're a banana, like white on the inside, yellow on the outside. I would get that if I wore red, I suddenly looked more Asian, even though I look Asian all the time. And I also even had an old classmate that brought string to like blind me because I had like squintier eyes than other people. And I also had a cat growing up, and if you can imagine, I got all of the eat cat jokes that you can imagine. And so now this did faze me, but like maybe not in the way that you think it did. I didn't really think it was inappropriate to do this when I was young. Like if you would ask me, like, Annabel, how do you feel when people make jokes about you're being Asian? I would be like, I mean, it doesn't faze me. Everyone's doing it. So like, I played along too. I noticed people treated me differently because I looked different. So I changed everything that I could fit in to the white people that were in my school, like mindlessly. So I started to dye my hair blonde. I quit wearing red in total. I wore a lot of typically white clothing. And I started to really like internally hate my like monolids and my nose shape and like how it's different to do like eye makeup than like normal like or the white like eyelids. And over time I internalized these negative experiences because I wanted to be a part of the majority culture that I was in. And so when people said like I was basically white or I'm not really Asian, I felt more accepted. So I now see how problematic that is to say to someone, and especially like a teenager. So I remember 2 core memories that made me think to myself, like, why do I hate myself? So when I first started making friends in college, I would make Asian jokes because that's just all that I knew about myself, or like just to do to like relate someone. And my friends would be like, why are you doing that, Annabel? And I'm like, why am I doing that to myself? So I guess it was just because I was just used to everyone doing it at home, making an Asian joke or a reference. So I somehow just wanted to beat someone to do it before, because I knew it was going to come. So I just wanted to just jump ahead and say, like, already making Asian jokes because I knew it was going to happen. But my friends were like, hey, Annabelle, that's pretty shitty of your friends to do that. And I was like, you're right. And so also another memory is during my first year, I was in a marriage and family sociology class, and we were all discussing interracial relationships, and specifically if Asian Americans interracially date. And the professor asked all the Asian Americans that were in a relationship if to raise their hand. So I raised my hand, and at that time I was dating this white male, and I ended up getting called on, and he was like, are you in an interracial relationship? And I was like, no. And I was like, wait, I'm not white. And I was like, oh, I am actually in an interracial relationship. And I am like, so I embarrassingly like corrected myself in front of people. And after that class, I reflected, why did I answer that way? So from these experiences in college, I started to reflect deeper into my childhood experiences and how my parents played a part, and why I didn't initially want to accept my identity. I am angry at some of the choices my parents made, but I also remind myself on why they are the way they are. My parents grew up in a little town in South Carolina called Branchville, South Carolina. And where, to this day, if you ask people, and if you're white, so they make you feel comfortable, that it's still in the separate but equal times. My parents knew they were going to get out of their hometown, and they got married very young, and they moved to North Carolina because my dad got a job in Greensboro. And my mom found out that she couldn't have a baby because she had endometriosis, and so they decided to adopt. And like many parents during the time when my parents were adopting, the people just wanted to make sure that the babies that were coming from different countries felt American and no different than them. And so my parents are white, Christian, and Southern, and nothing wrong with any of those attributes. It's just, those are just descriptions that impacted the way I grew up. And I remember up until late elementary and early middle school, I celebrated Chinese New Year, and then I stopped. But then my parents didn't really mind that I stopped learning about my Chinese culture. They did things. They never took me back to China. They didn't encourage me to learn Chinese. I never really went even to an Asian market until last May. And when we went to Chinese restaurants, it would just be Chinese takeout. It wasn't an actual authentic Chinese meal. And now I'm angry at this, but I also understand that I can't harbor not efficient or productive anger. So my parents aren't typical, or they're just typical Southerners that haven't pushed themselves, and they haven't delved into their whiteness. They didn't have anybody pushing them to do that until I got to college, and I was in an environment that pushed me to delve into me to explore myself, who I am as an adopted, agnostic Asian American. So fast forward post-grad life, I'm coming up to be about 2 years out of college. I took a year off after I graduated. I traveled a lot. I became a barista, still am, at the downtown location, The Blend. And I really met some awesome local people, which helped me re-love a town that really caused me a lot of hurt. And a little under a year after I graduated, I learned about a potential job at Elon. And Elon, surprisingly, it shocked me, but it has been a very healing process, because during planning week, there was a reception for the API and Asian Studies for faculty and staff, and I was invited, and I never experienced being in a room full of people that looked like my own, in my own hometown. It was so different. And I got really nervous right before I walked in, because sometimes I've even gotten from Asians that I'm not really Asian, I only look Asian. So I just feel I was nervous about I was gonna be if I would have fit in. And but out of that, I even got a friend out of that reception. And I'm like still navigating through my identity and learning more about my Chinese culture. And like I also now date someone who happens to be Asian as well. At first, it was interesting. I would get so nervous when he would walk up to me, and I knew it was more than just because I was dating someone new. It was because like I've never experienced an Asian male or anyone Asian that consistently came up to me daily in my entire life. And it started me just thinking like I just never have experienced that growing up. And being able to like learn to love and to love a person that looks like me, like helps me learn to like love myself. And so also after graduation, I like read a lot of books that have helped me understand self-love. In the book All About Love by Bell Hooks, she states, when we can see ourselves as we truly are and accept ourselves, we build the necessary foundation for self-love. Some of my building blocks of my necessary foundations are getting out of a toxic codependent relationship of 4 years, forgiving my younger self for not standing up for like what I deserve. And also like realizing you don't have to have a clear answer to the question all graduates get, what are you doing after you graduate? I'm still processing on the things that I've shared. But it's like the topic of these series, like it's the meaning of the journey. And that includes continuous change, and we're always becoming. We're always in a state of becoming. I'm in the process of becoming Annabel. And I learned through this reading Becoming Michelle Obama. We're all gonna go through many stages of our life, and our experience are going to keep us healing and keep us shaping who we are. But thank you for letting me share.